Joining us now, David Frum, senior editor for The Atlantic. Also with us, Joyce Vance, former U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Alabama and a professor at the University of Alabama Law School. She announced on the evening before President Trump's inauguration that she was retiring from the Justice Department after 25 years. Joyce Vance, I wanted to go to the particulars of the Papadopoulos case. It seems to me this is the dead center of the investigation. This is someone who's been charged with lying to the FBI about the essence of what the special prosecutor is investigating.
He has been. The lie that he's told, in fact, relates to the Russians' interest in him stemming from his involvement in the campaign. And that, I think, attests to Mueller's genius in leading with this charge, because not only does it signify that he won't tolerate being lied to in the course of this investigation, it puts everyone who's involved in this circle of events, I think, in a state of high fear, because we don't know who else has been arrested, who else is cooperating like Papadopoulos. And so each of them has to be concerned about conversations that they may have had with Papadopoulos since his arrest in late July.
And the day that Papadopoulos lied to the FBI was before there was even a special prosecutor named. It was back at the end of the first week of the Trump presidency on January 27th. And that Friday, January 27th, turns out to be the very same day that FBI Director James Comey was invited by the president, surprisingly and suddenly, to the White House for a one-on-one dinner. And here is how James Comey described what happened at that dinner.
Let me move to the January 27th dinner, where you said, quote, "The president began by asking me whether I wanted to stay on as FBI director. He also indicated that lots of people, again your words, wanted the job. What was your impression, and what did you mean by this notion of a patronage relationship?"
Well, my impression, and again, it's my impression, I could always be wrong, but my common sense told me that what was going on is either he had concluded or someone had told him that you've already asked Comey to stay, and you didn't get anything for it, and that the dinner was an effort to build a relationship. In fact, he asked specifically of loyalty in the context of asking me to stay.
David Frum, I have the feeling that when the history of this is written, there will be many days like this, many days like January 27th, where one dramatic scene is happening in the White House in the dining room with the president and James Comey, and another fateful scene is happening where someone like George Papadopoulos decides on that day to lie to the FBI.
Well, you're not the only one who has that impression. Because to my mind, one of the most interesting things about tonight, following today, is something that is not happening. If you've been watching Fox, and I assume you have, and other networks too, I think it's striking, there are no Republican lawmakers on TV. And at The Atlantic, and I assume many other new organizations, we spent a lot of time today trying to get them on the phone. And they seem to have lost knowledge of how to make that instrument work either. This is a moment where a president rallies or tries to rally his friends. And there's Newt Gingrich, and there's Sean Hannity, and there's Laura Ingraham, and there are a lot of other people who don't have to face electors. But what we are not seeing tonight, now they're not taking the courageous route or the proper route and standing up for the integrity of the judicial process and saying don't fire Robert Mueller, but neither are they being counted for the president. This is a moment when a lot of people are wavering as to what their future is going to look like.
And Joyce Vance, a lot of expectations surrounded Mike Flynn today because he seems to be one of the most easily charged people in this story and leading up to all of this. What do you suppose is happening on the Flynn side of this case?
Right. You have to wonder after today's events whether or not Flynn is already cooperating with Mueller. Many people thought that he would be the subject of today's announced indictments. I frankly thought Manafort was a little bit more likely because we knew that the FBI had been investigating him prior to the establishment of the special counsel. But the fact that that Flynn was not included in the indictments today leads you to believe that either that will be coming in the near future or that perhaps it's unnecessary because he's already cooperating.
And of course, the White House tried to suggest that Dan Papadopoulos was not a serious player in the Trump foreign policy team during the campaign. Let's listen to how Donald Trump himself described Dan Papadopoulos to the Washington Post.
We heard you might be announcing your foreign policy advisory team soon.
If you want, I could give you some of the names. I wouldn't
be delighted.
I wouldn't mind. Carter Page, PhD. George Papadopoulos. He's an oil and energy consultant. Excellent guy.
I want to apologize to Dan Papadopoulos, who's a friend of mine, who I misspoke when I should have said George Papadopoulos. But David Frum, there's the president when he's running, saying George Papadopoulos is one of the people he relies on.
And that's at a moment when the president had very few foreign policy consultants. It is striking how many of them had some kind of improper relationship with Russia. I mean, that's the giant magnetic force. And all of this, there's a second track, which we have to keep in mind as we follow this story, which is this is the same time when Trump and the Trump organization are trying to get a hotel deal in Russia. That is happening concurrently with all of this hunting for access to Hillary Clinton's emails. So Moscow was just exercising this magnetic attraction on different parts of the Trump brain. I want to do down my political opponent's brain. I want to make money in Moscow brain.
And David, I just want to stress the point about the Papadopoulos interview with the FBI. This is happening very, very early in this investigation, before people knew that the kind of massive power and pressure of a special prosecutor was going to be on them. And so it seems to be that Papadopoulos made the guess that this might be a low voltage investigation that he could just talk his way through at that point.
Well, I think a lot of people around Trump just made bad calculations. I mean, whatever you think about Donald Trump personally, that he seems not to attract super masterminds in secondary positions. And so a lot of people are doing wrong things, but because they are so much, especially in foreign policy, the C and D and E team, that they don't take things that you would think of as basic precautions if you had an awareness of how risky and improper your actions were.
Joyce Vance, quickly before we go, does it repeatedly shock you that people think they can get away with lying to the FBI like this? Because it always just stuns me that they sit there, they make that calculation, they decide to lie.
It's absolutely incredible, and of course nothing angers agents more than being lied to. It makes them double down on their investigation. We saw that here today, and it certainly gives new vitality to James Comey's statement, "Lordy, I hope there's tapes." I think that the FBI was angry enough about being lied to that there will be more tapes now.
Joyce Vance, please stay with us. David Frum, thank you for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.